say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing.
Welcome back to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, Malcolm MacDonald, and a guest today, Paulie Belter, a well-known singer-songwriter from Newcastle. Paulie, welcome to Scotswood Social Club. Great to have you here as part of the NUFC Matters team as a guest this week. Tell us a little bit about how the singing and songwriting came about, and just in general what your songs are about.
Hello everybody. How it came about really was I saw that they hadn't sorted out Rafael Benitez's contract at the end of last season. I thought, oh, maybe they need a bit of a kick up the behind. So I wrote a song called Stay Senor, which I did a daft video with my sausage roll trumpet and put it up on the internet. And it went a bit mad, and I got like 150,000 views in the space of a couple of weeks. Didn't go very well because Rafa ended up leaving and Rondon ended up leaving, which were the two people I was talking about in the song. It's not my fault, whose fault it is. So anyway, after that I thought, well, that went quite well. I'll try and write another song, and I wrote another one, and then I wrote another one. I thought, well, I'd best do an album. So I did an album, and it's called Sound Pet. You see what I did? Sound Pet, right? Aye. And it's got pastry on every single side of the CD, so that's a selling point. And all of my songs are either about football, sausage rolls, me nana, peas pudding, like all the good Geordie stuff. To be fair, a lot of my songs are about Mike Ashley. So as of yet, I'm the unofficial Newcastle United musician type bloke, like there's no way I'm going to be official until the fat man's out the door. But it's alright because I've got a lovely goalkeeper still.
You've done a lot of live performances. You go out, I've seen you on social media, you're going out and let's say standing outside various shops. I'm not going to name them because I don't like to give them free publicity, but you do a lot of live gigs. And I mean, you're not a shy lad, obviously happy to come on UFC Matters tonight, but do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy the live performance? Is it the adrenaline rush? What do you get out of it?
I really, really enjoy standing outside particular shops and singing me songs and telling people to go to other shops to buy their sportswear and or computer games, Love it. That's one of my favourite things, is making sure that people haven't gone into certain places. I enjoy the process of writing songs. If I can be a thorn in a particular person's side while I'm doing it, then all the better. I just like having a bit of a laugh. You can take it as seriously or as trivially as you like. Reading between the lines is probably the important thing when you listen to my music. A lot of wordplay, a lot of really clever stuff. There's not. It's honestly really basic. It's all about sausage rolls, shaving pigeons, and the different type of women that you get in areas of Newcastle and Gateshead. Like local knowledge that you won't find anywhere else.
Round of applause. You have done a charity single as well. Do you want to give that a little bit of a plug, because that's always very important?
Yes. So I've done probably the most ill-advised choice of a song ever to try and raise money for. All the profits go to the NUFC Food Bank, which is a brilliant thing that everybody should get involved with. Try and support them as much as they can. A lot of people in our city who need the help, and if everyone can just chip in a little bit, then it goes a long way. It costs about £10 or something to feed a family for a week. It doesn't sound like much money, but it really, really is. It goes a long way. The song that I chose was a bit daft. Give Bruce a Chance. Cover of the old John Lennon classic. Maybe it's not the best choice, I was full of optimism, I was, I thought, we'll give him a crack. After all, he's from Wallsend, I'm from Wallsend, I tell you what, though, I'd still say, he's never had his full squad to choose from. He's had a lot of problems. I didn't think we can really judge him well, you probably can, but you know, we can't. Until give him a little bit more time, and before we make a decision about whether he's doing a good job, whether he's doing a bad job. He's never had a full complement of players to pick from yet, you know. Download it off geordiepaul.com, pay what you want. All the money goes to a really good place. And the CDs are £10 and all the money goes to me, and I spend it on sausage rolls and dog food.
At least he's honest. At least he's honest. Although I think his judgment's more down to what he drinks than about Steve Bruce. Yes, mate. Question.
Sorry, I was just saying. You know, when you talk about Mike Ashley, do you struggle to like get things to rhyme with like front and?
Well, that's a great question. When you're writing songs about Mike Ashley, do you get things, you know, that you can rhyme with various words about Mike Ashley? How do you do that?
I do, yeah. I mean, I really, when I made this, I was conscious of trying not to swear in it. I don't. To be fair, it needs to be accessible to any football fans of Newcastle of any age, and when you start effing and blinding, you cannot get your song played on the radio and all that sort of thing. But there's many ways of describing something that you don't like. You know what I mean? What I am quite good with is my words. So like, I or a Doylem, depending on which way you want to look at it. You know? I quite like to just sort of let people fill in the blanks for themselves. But obviously, when you've all bought a copy of my CD, you'll know for yourselves, won't you?
He's good at plugging himself, that's for certain. Anyway, big hand for Paul. He's going to stay on for a bit of Q&A as well. Malcolm, let's go back to that fantastic game that we witnessed at St James's Park last weekend. Brighton and Hove Albion at home, the mighty Brighton and Hove Albion at home. I can see a big Bruce fan there at the back. We'll come to you, mate, don't worry. Look, at the end of the day, right, as far as we're concerned, we've had a big game against Brighton, which we ended up with a 0-0 result, 22% possession against Brighton, and let's face it, it's not looking good, is it?
I think you're being kind to him.
It's only because he's in the background.
I have never seen 90 minutes of such rubbish football in my life as I saw from Newcastle. If Steve Bruce is to be judged on disorganisation, he'll be top of the list. The back five, I'm not sure whether they were zonal marking or whether they were just crap at man marking. There was no communication, and I could just go, there's a whole list of do's and a whole list of do nots when it comes to playing football, particularly at the high level. And Newcastle got the two columns completely the wrong way round. Everything they shouldn't have done, they did. Everything they should have done, they had forgotten all about. And it's not just because there's cameras or an audience that I'm saying this. I actually sat there and I really felt I was while the game was in progress, I was trying to think of a game that I'd seen that was worse, and I couldn't. And there was a fella there. I'm not going to name his name. I don't think it would be fair to him with cameras here, but he was a scout for Bobby Robson, and he came up and he was absolutely scathing about one or two players and then the team in general, and he actually said that it was the worst that he had ever seen. And when it comes from a professional who was highly respected by Bobby Robson, you have to take note.
Well,
Yes.
Was he a chatty man? Was he a chatty man?
No. No, somebody quite different. Yeah. Now, what I've been thinking about most of the week is, if I were in Steve Bruce's shoes, what would I be doing with the team from last week when you got Leicester? And I have to say that Leicester, I saw Leicester play, I think it was the second game of the season, and they played at Stamford Bridge, and they were losing, and in the second half they went and absolutely murdered Chelsea. They played some of the finest football I've seen in a very, very long time. Certainly the best team performance I've seen so far this season. They were absolutely brilliant. And Newcastle are facing them on Sunday. Oh dear.
Looking at the game again last week, Shelby came off. Is that a big issue now in the dressing room? I'll come to you, Paulie, about that. Shelby walks off the pitch. He's substituted. His head's down. Rafa didn't let him anywhere near the team last year. Bruce has brought him back in. What was your take on that? Is he a positive influence on the team, Shelby, or isn't he?
He's a conundrum, isn't he? He is. He's without a doubt one of the most talented players for the football that we've got. But at the very highest level, you can't switch off. You've got to track your man back. You've got to do the fundamentals. I'm not sure whether that was down to him being injured or what, but it looks like there's something wrong with him. Judging by what I saw of the Brighton game, he didn't look right. I couldn't really see any more than that. I know he's been putting the work in pre-season, apparently running 6k a day. Maybe he's worked too hard pre-season. He's tired himself out. I really don't know.
Tell the truth, he was shite.
Yeah. Joe Linton, obviously, we've spoken about him on the show as well. Talk about Shelby and Joe Linton, Malcolm.
Okay, just on the Shelby situation, in the first part, I was talking about great passes of the ball who can drop other players in trouble. Johnny Haynes did it to me once. Terry Hibbett did it to me. I watched Shelby against Brighton doing it to his teammates, and it's not a nice thing to do. And I think that's what Steve Bruce saw and said, get him off. And once he came off, I really did think that the improvement was huge without Shelby on the pitch, and purely and simply for that, I wouldn't pick him. And we're back, aren't we? We're back to the Rafa Benitez situation where Rafa just didn't want to know him. Something happened a year ago, and it's happening again, and we're actually witnessing it. And it is not helping the players who are out there trying to do it for Newcastle United, and it's certainly not helping the club, not in the slightest. Joe Linton, he is the record purchase for Newcastle United. Now, other record purchases, I aimed for 30 goals a season, and I finished up averaging 27.5 per season for the 5 that I was here. Then you've got Alan Shearer. Alan Shearer, world record transfer fee, but he produced approaching 30 goals a season as well. And then we've got Joe Linton. Michael Owen. Well, Michael Owen had a fantastic goal-scoring record everywhere bar St James's Park. But with Joe Linton, Rafa Benitez, some months back, he said, Joe Linton, maybe he might make a player, but he is not worth the kind of money that you're suggesting we pay for him. In fact, I don't think he's worth half of that. And by heavens, wasn't he right? And so it worries and concerns me that an owner of Newcastle United should deny Rafa Benitez for 3 years the funds to improve the Newcastle side, and that improvement was desperately needed each of those 3 seasons, and yet as soon as Rafa's out the door, we are squandering money on forwards who cannot score. In fact, not only can't they score, they're not shooting. Almiron, if you remember, in his first game for the club last season, he was through with just the keeper to beat, and he lobbed him, and it bounced, hit the post, and came back out. Do you know that against Brighton he had his second shot on target for the club? It's the first since that debut game that he had, and it was the weakest, tamest, fluffed shot straight at the goalkeeper. Just the keeper to beat. Come on, you've got to do an awful lot better than that. And I watch Almiron, and I think he's absolutely petrified. He runs about all over the place. He smiles at other players, and he looks to be doing their work for them. Why? I really don't know. If you're going to make a name for yourself in the Premier League, with regards to goal scoring, you've got to be downright selfish, not... and Almiron, it looks like he's wanting to do everybody's running for them. No good. You have to concentrate on what is important to you so that you can make a name for yourself by sticking the ball in the net. And there were times when I wasn't doing the running that other players wanted me to do. And I used to argue with them in the dressing room. And I used to say, never mind me running back. What I'm doing is running forward. You run back, you're good at it. I run forward because you're crap at it. And I said, and all I want is the ball at roughly the right time, and I'll go and stick it in the net for you. And if you're going to be a goal scorer, you have to miss. So missing shouldn't be a worry. It's when you're not shooting. That's the worry. Almiron isn't shooting. And his compadre up front, Joe Linton, isn't shooting. And that is frightening for me, because if you're not prepared to shoot, you never will score.
Good points, well made, Malcolm. Let's talk about the crowd again. We did a little rant last week, which the lads always throw on us each week. We're talking about attendance. I believe the attendance was probably under 40,000 last week. There was huge gaps in the stadium again. And the supporters who were in the ground, a lot of people at half-time, understandably, were booing, which obviously creates a bit of a storm on social media, because people say you should be there to support the team. You were in the ground. What was your take on the attendance and on the fans booing? Can you understand people booing?
Usually I would say no, but when you see such utter rubbish as was produced against Brighton, I can understand people booing out of sheer frustration. I would imagine that there were a lot of supporters all thinking, gee whiz, I could go out there on the pitch myself and do better. And I understand that kind of thinking. But what really upset me was that I'll take 3 players out of the mix, and that was the goalkeeper, Shah, and the lad next to the English lad. Paul Dummett. Sorry, his name just slipped my mind there for a minute. Paul Dummett. I'll take those 3 out of the mix, and I thought the rest were utter garbage, absolute garbage, and it worries me if we are looking for these players as a nucleus to keep us in the Premiership. There is no chance. They weren't concerned nor worried about being rubbish. that's what really hurt, and that's where I forgave the booing, because if players aren't looking to at least earn them the huge money that they're earning these days, then what chance have you got? What hope have you got?
The boycott is obviously at the start of the season against Arsenal. It wasn't as successful as people hoped, but then obviously it's just been a general diminish, hasn't it? Really, there's been a lot of empty seats in various areas, up to 10, maybe 12,000 season tickets that haven't renewed. You're not going to the games. How difficult do you find it, Paul?
I love going to games. I really do think that the boycott is the way forward, though. The pressure that is being applied to make Ashley now, people are voting with their feet, people are walking out. You're never, ever, ever going to be able to stop everybody turning up to St James's Park. That is just impossible. People are so committed to following their team through thick and thin. You'll never stop everybody turning up. But I think it's the only way forward. The only way to get Mike Ashley out of the club is to boycott, and for that to increase and increase and increase like it is every week. We're seeing the attendance is dropping every week. We're seeing people like myself going and just making the fella's life a misery, you know, like, well, I'm just going to stop people shopping in your shops. He couldn't walk down Northumberland Street. That's not right. The owner of a football club should be able to walk down the high street of that city and have adoring fans come up to them. When it gets, he needs to go now, because the tide's never going to turn in his favour now, is it?
No, definitely not. Go on, Mark.
Sorry, just as I was handing the mic over, the gentleman on the back wall over to my left, that you shouted out about Newcastle winning at Tottenham. And didn't they do well? They got a clean sheet there. They played very well. You tell me what the hell has gone wrong for such rubbish to be produced at St James's Park when they can play as well as they did at Spurs. They put the effort in, but there was no effort, no real construction against Brighton. I'm not talking about last season. Different players, different manager. I'm not talking about last season. I'm talking about what is happening now.
This season had 5 good chances at Brighton. Joe Linton, one. Axel, back in disguise. You know what I mean?
No, I don't know what you mean.
5 good chances against Brighton. Joe Linton missed them.
I think you want to go and check your glasses, pal. You're seeing double. I really do.
Thanks for your comment, Nate. Thanks for your comment. Thanks for your comment. Anyway, we've got one of Mike Ashley's spies in the room, obviously. Big shout out to Mike's biggest fan in the corner there. Good stuff, mate. Great stuff. Moving forward, let's talk about something else that I'm sure that guy will have an opinion on. The NUFC takeover. I mean takeover. It's all on. Peter Kenyon's coming to save the day. We're gonna ask Malcolm his opinion, then we're gonna come to some questions. This will be the last thing we'll do before we get on to the back end of the show. Malcolm, what's your honest opinion on this takeover talk that we've heard over the last 24 hours?
If it is genuine, you have silence until the deal is done, and then you can read all about it, you can hear all about it. Nobody had an inkling at all when Manchester City were purchased by a very, very rich Arab country. Nobody knew about it. Nobody was aware. And the last thing that they ever wanted was for anything to come out in the public domain before the deal was done. And that doesn't apply just to football, it applies to just about every form of industry, business, whatever. And for it all to come out in the newspapers, yet again, before anything's happened, it is just a complete, utter mockery as far as business is concerned. As soon as it's out, before the deal is done, the people who know how business operates just say, load of old rubbish. Load of rubbish, and it turns out, in the long run, to be a load of old rubbish. And Peter Kenyon knows Mike Ashley and vice versa exceedingly well. And I think it's a contrived situation. For what particular reason, I really don't know. To try and get Mike Ashley off the hook, maybe with the supporters, maybe to try and get the 10,000 that are missing from the stadium, to get them back. Yeah. And I really don't know. But serious business doesn't appear in the papers before it actually happens.
Let's say devil's advocate. If it is true, the figures that we're actually hearing from Kenyon's camp are allegedly that he's going to put £125 million into the purchase. He's then going to ask Mike Ashley to borrow £175 million to complete the purchase of the club, and then make £50 million available in January for transfers. Unbelievable. I mean, if that's the case, you're putting the club into debt again to purchase the club, and we're still at the behest of Mike Ashley because money will be owed to him.
Yeah.
Or the Rangers.
And I'm not sure that the football authorities would even consider such a situation for a chairman to leave the club, or the owner, so he's now the ex-owner. Oh, but he's still got the most money in there, so he's really the owner after all. It's nonsense. The football authorities just couldn't allow that, and if they did, then they want their brains testing.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna have some questions on the floor now. We've got about 25 minutes left, so we'll come to you next. You first. You first. No, you first.
Right, I'm sorry, mate, but I was talking about before all this opened, but all the Ashley stuff. I'm sorry to bring it up and all this thing, but can you tell all the lads what's happening? Is it how much Newcastle paying this company and I should not have seen that.
Go on. You had a conversation before we went on.
Yeah. What is?
Before all this went out, I was talking to Malcolm downstairs, you know what I mean? And Malcolm gave me some information with Ashley's
Okay. Malcolm's
there's also a reason why Mike Ashley won't sell Newcastle United. It's making him too much money. It's making him a lot of money when he has a whole raft of companies around the world, particularly in America and Australia, that are losing money hand over fist. A lot of money, and the one constant that keeps making it for him is Newcastle United, and that is becoming a bedrock of his organisation because it just keeps putting the money in, and he keeps saying that Newcastle, no, it's on its uppers. No, it isn't. What is happening is, to put it on its uppers, he's taking the money out first, and then saying that it's on their uppers. Now, and so I cannot see how Mike Ashley would ever allow Newcastle to be sold unless he were to get a fantastic sum, and 300 million. It doesn't even scratch the surface for me. It really doesn't. But Mike Ashley, he gets his group of companies gets that money before there's a wage paid or a bill paid.
Okay. Somebody have a question over here? We'll come to you first.
It's about exactly what you've been talking about. Why is nobody prepared to buy Newcastle United?
Why?
I know for a fact.
Good question.
We've got one of the best attendances every time. They make a profit every single season.
Okay, so the question is, why is nobody prepared to buy Newcastle United? My view on that is because we haven't got a willing seller. Full stop.
Yes, and I would agree on that. Also, there was an interesting little piece in the Daily Mail when it was breaking the Kenyan story this morning, but it also, the Craig Hope, the northeastern writer for the Mail, he just happened to make the comment that if you look back, I think it was 15 years, the value of Newcastle was pretty much more than it is now. More. And that it was much higher than Tottenham Hotspur. It was a third higher than Tottenham. So when Newcastle was in excess of 300, Tottenham was about 220. But it's all changed around, and Tottenham is now valued at somewhere around 1.2 billion, which is 4 times higher than the Newcastle valuation on what we're reading is the offer for Newcastle, as long as Mike Ashley lends them 175 million. But that's putting Tottenham 4 times higher. Now, surely we all know that the chairman of Tottenham Hotspur, the owner is a fella who lives over in the Caribbean. He's a multi-billionaire, an investor, and he's put the chairman in at Tottenham Hotspur, who is as tight with the finance as anybody you can find in football. But still the value goes up because what's in Tottenham stays in Tottenham. It's not going elsewhere. It's not having to finance anything outside of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. They've just had a brand new stadium built, and their value is 4 times higher than the valuation we've seen today of Newcastle United. And that to me says that the whole thing with Newcastle, it just doesn't strike me as real.
Next question down the middle here. Next question.
I'll tell you about the 1974 Cup final. Can you tell me why the abysmal team performance happened, and what did Joe Harvey say to you at half time?
1974 FA Cup final. The question is, why did the team not perform on the day, and what did Joe Harvey say to you at half time?
Now, there was a little bit of a strange situation leading up. Well, 2 things. Firstly, that Newcastle United travelled down on the Monday to London, to the hotel. The reason that we did that was that the board of Newcastle United said, well, that's what Sunderland did last year and they won the FA Cup. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us, so we're going to do exactly what Sunderland did and we'll stay in the same. But of course, Sunderland were in a division lower and were playing a hell of a side in Leeds, not expected to do anything at all. But okay, they finished up, they won it, and they were absolutely brilliant. But it wasn't the preparation that a top side should have had. What Liverpool did was they trained Friday morning, travelled down Friday afternoon, stayed in a hotel overnight, and went to the stadium the next day and played the game. And that's how we always used to travel down to London. All of a sudden, we're staying a week in London. And it was the worst preparation ever. There was one other thing that was going on, and that was that Keith Birkinshaw was having an absolute nightmare, not with Joe, but with the board, with regards to a new contract. and the board of directors treated coaches abysmally. They paid them a pittance. And Keith Birkinshaw was at the end of his tether, and he said to Joe when we were down in South London that as far as he was concerned, he didn't want to be a part of the build-up to Wembley. Joe took a bit of a gamble. In fact, it turned out to be a hell of a gamble. What he said to Berkey was, look, Berkey, I'll let you pick the team if you work with the lads. And so Joe did it on the premise that there really wasn't much that Keith Birkinshaw could do to change it, because we were the same 13 players down in London that Joe was picking a side from. But what happened was Keith Birkinshaw decided, and the first we knew of it was Thursday morning when we went training. And Keith Birkinshaw left Stuart Barraclough out, which was disastrous for John Tudor and I, because we played defensively a 4-4-2 system, and as soon as we got the ball, Stuart Barraclough pushed up, and we had a winger. Not only a winger, but he was quick as lightning and was a great crosser of a ball. And so we would shift from 4-4-2 to 4-3-3. Berkey left Barra out and he put in Jimmy Smith. But he also instructed the two wider players, Terry Hibbett on one side and Terry McDermott on the other, that they had to push in and play narrow. Now, in the Liverpool camp, there was a fella called Alec Lindsay, the left back, who was the proverbial cart horse when it came to running. And he used to get murdered by Stuart Barraclough, and so he's expecting all the week to have a torrid time down at Wembley that Stuart Barraclough will just run him absolutely ragged. He arrives at Wembley to see the Newcastle team sheet, and Stuart Barraclough isn't playing, and Terry McDermott is playing in a very narrow line, and Alec Lindsay has just got an absolute open field ahead of him and is just bombing down the left-hand flank of Liverpool all day long. And nobody could do anything about it, and it finished up that the right back, who happened to be Frank Clark, one of the very best defenders I've ever played against, but he was playing because David Craig had been injured, and he was playing 1 against 2. Alec Lindsay, who was coming forward, and Steve Highway. Frank Clark had enough to do just looking after Steve Highway. Never mind having Alec Lindsay come bombing at him as well. And so the whole thing, it was dreadful, dreadful organisation. It was Keith Birkinshaw seeking to make a point to the board of directors about the crap pay that coaches got. And when you're under instruction on the football field, you have to really stick to it, except in odd instances where nature takes over in your thinking, and you do what you feel you must do. But generally, when the ball goes out of play, you get organised in the way that you've been coached, and that's how we were playing. The ball was never getting forward. Everything was so narrow, dreadfully narrow.
So Joe Harvey had no input at half time at all.
Not really, no, because it was all down to Keith Birkinshaw. He had selected the team, selected the tactics, And so, at half-time, it was Keith Birkinshaw who didn't say very much at half-time, and he knew he had dropped a ghoulie. And we, as we walked off towards the tunnel, yes, it was 0-0 at half-time. As we walked off towards the tunnel, Frank Clark and I found ourselves walking together, and I just said, Frank, there is no way in the second half we can be as bad as we have been in that first half. And he said, I hope you're right. And he was. We were worse.
Good answer and great question. Thanks very much. Anybody else got a question? Yes, sir.
Well, it's to go back to the sort of conversation before. Do you believe Sky Sports has too much, or sorry, television revenue has too much of an influx in football these days to determine who sells clubs, who buys clubs, who?
Okay.
See a lot of saying.
Has Sky got too much power, Malcolm?
I wish they could use that power to find a proper buyer for Newcastle.
I mean, yes, they do. I think the biggest thing from a fan's perspective, a lot of fans here who are recognising, who have seen over the years, it's about moving fixtures. So we're just talking there, one of my mates, about Aston Villa game. You know, people book trains, they book the bus, whatever, they book hotels, and then at the drop of a hat, TV moves it to a Monday night. It's a game a lot of people want to go to. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's a nightmare. Sky do, for me, they do have too much power.
The other thing was that obviously ticket revenue in today's football must be very minimal in the financial.
Compared to the money that gets put in by Sky.
I mean, you've got the likes of Bournemouth where they've got, I think the stadium got 11,500 to 12,000.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got 52 plus. They can, in the drop of a hat, paying 25 million on it. We've got to justify a 40 million pounds there.
Yeah.
And you sort of, you know, you work out where the money is distributed.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose the point he's trying to make there is obviously, we know that there's a guaranteed, as long as you're in the Premier League, 110, 120 million coming into the club coffers. And, does that have an influence? I suppose there's no such thing as fan power now. I think the amount of people that we've lost through the gates at the moment, somebody put something up the other day that it could cost the club £6 million this year if the attendance has stayed around about 43,000 mark. So it's not a major knock, but it's a knock. So I suppose that's what the question is, man.
Yeah. Before Sky Television, that 6 million would have been absolutely massive. It would have been a huge part of the income. But because of Sky, they're now calling all the shots because they are putting in such an absolute vast fortune, which is why Mike Ashley's there. That's why he got involved, because he knows the kind of money that's coming back and what it can do for his group of companies. I don't see a way out of it, but if it wasn't for Sky, Mike Ashley wouldn't be in football, I can assure you.
Yeah, it's a good point. Okay, yes sir, we'll give you a question.
Very, very friendly question, Malcolm. Go on, what's the best?
You're not going to change a habit of a lifetime.
Seriously, the reason behind this. What's the best ever goal you scored at James's Park?
Great question. I wasn't expecting a good question. I've got to be honest. What is the best goal you scored at James's Park?
Yeah, you had to be there to see it because there were no cameras there that day, but it was a match against Leicester, and Leicester had a corner, and it was sort of headed down by one of our defenders, and Irvin Natris got onto the ball and he started running through the inside right position in our own half, and I was back defending on the goal line, and I just took off. I saw that because Irvin was quick, and I just was hammering it right through the very centre of the ground, and now the thing that I knew with Irvin was that he had this deep belief that the opposing half was full of crocodiles. because well, it must have been because he didn't like treading over the halfway line. And so I knew that once he crossed that halfway line, he was going to get rid of the ball. And so I was absolutely thundering after him, some 10 yards behind, and screaming for him to square it. And all of a sudden he did. And we were about 8 yards into the opposing half. And he squared it. And I remember some years later, that I remember seeing Gary Player, the South African golfer, and he was giving golfing lessons on Saturday morning on television. And there was one particular time that they got on to driving off the tee, and he went and he got his driver, and he said, and this really struck a chord with me. He said, "Do you know," he said, "this is my driver." He said, "I must have hit 10,000 competitive shots with this club. And do you know, I've only hit one properly. Just 1 in 10,000. And immediately when he said that, I remember this ball coming across from Irving Natris, and the timing was immaculate. It wasn't sort of pitching up off the pitch or anything like that. It was just there, absolutely perfect, in my stride, and I just hit it. And it's like Gary Player said, that you can strike 10,000 shots, but only ever hit one perfect one, and that was my perfect shot.
Great description. Okay, we're gonna wrap this little bit up now, because we're gonna finish the live broadcast. We'll stay on to do a few more questions.
Is that so that they can start swearing?
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna finish the programme off with the predictions. We've got Leicester away, this Sunday. So we're looking for predictions. I'll go to you first, Paulie. How do you see the game going?
Well, probably not very well. I would say we're going to try and keep it tight at the back, but we're going to lose 1-0.
Okay, that's your prediction. Your prediction, Mal?
I'll go back to what I said earlier. Leicester were absolutely amazing in that second half against Chelsea. If they turn that kind of form on, Newcastle are going to get well beaten. And I think that Leicester could score 3 or 4.
Okay. I was at the Leicester Cup game, and I thought Newcastle played well. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw on Sunday. 1-1 draw, that's what I'm putting on the bookies.
And your record, and I have to tell you that Steve's record so far this season is brilliant. No, it's brilliant. It really is. Yeah. Bloody Noel.
Okay, that's all from Scotswood Social Club tonight on NUFC Matters. Big round of applause for the audience. Big thank you to Paulie and to Malcolm. And we're going to play out with the long stands and choices. See you next week.
See you, I'll just wing it.
Yeah, great being on telly with you.
Hi, I'm Trev.
Hi, and I'm Stan.
Hush now, city kids, gather round for rubbing mints. Hush now, city kids. When it came to me after so long, I didn't have no choices in the streets where I was from. When I think about the pain, I didn't have no choices. I took what I had sworn. Hush now, city kids, gather round for rubbing mints. Hush now, city kids. But you know, they wouldn't let you have it any other way. Stepping back from what you like, the past just pulls you back in again. Save me from kids. When I think about my friends, I didn't have no voices telling me to win it. What I take, it becomes mine. I'm gonna build an empire, one without a shrine. But you know, wouldn't let you have it any other way. Stepping back from what you like, the past just pulls you back in again. Save me from myself, it just carries on, just carries on. But you know, they wouldn't let you have it any other way. Stepping back from what you like, the past just puts you right back in again. Save me from myself, it just carries on, just carries on. Hush now, city kids, gather round for urban myths. Hush now, city kids, gather round for urban myths. Hush now, city kids. Hush now, city kids, gather round for urban myths. Hush now, city kids.